sometimes I have this feeling that for us, that it's easier for us. We are more predisposed, when we get close to Buddhism, to put emphasis in the mental defilements, in seeing and recognizing our anger and jealousy or envy and so forth. And as a consequence, we try to observe, say that it's not good, somehow point the finger on what's not right. And in pointing the finger, sometimes we get into a kind of where we feel we blame ourselves. We say I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't do like that. Instead, I do it, etc., etc. Instead, what's really important for us, not just to understand, but to put into practice, is the energy shouldn't be invested in going against mental defilements. The energy should be invested in cultivating our qualities. It should go towards the antidote, not in highlighting the poison, the mental defilement. Once we've recognized it, then we put emphasis in cultivating the antidote. I don't know if it's for cultural reason, but sometimes I have this feeling that we give more emphasis in seeing and seeing what's not going right, pointing the finger, seeing what's wrong. Obviously, it's important to see what's not going right, what's wrong. There's this verse that says that the sickness should be recognized, nenishecha, and its causes are to be abandoned. The state of health is to be reached, and for that reason, the path of healing should be applied. So the path is recognizing the sickness, abandon its causes. I direct myself towards health, and I follow the healing process. So I recognize, that I don't want to suffer. I see what the causes of that suffering is. And so where we see there are behaviors or aspects of ourselves that are not good for us, we shouldn't go against them, go against our mental defilements. We should stop nourishing them. It's different. One thing is I try to put myself against. I go against. I try to generate an energy against opposing the anger, jealousy, envy, etc. But without applying the antidote, and that's just not going to work. Another thing instead is that, first of all, I recognize that where I have bad habits, and first of all, I just stop nourishing them. That's the fundamental step that we need. We abandon the causes of sickness. Once I've recognized what is harmful to me, I shouldn't go against what is harmful to me, but I should stop cultivating it, stop nourishing it. How do we do that? We need to stop investing energy in that, stop giving energy to it. How do we give energy to a habit? Just by repeating it. any habit that we have, if we want to reinforce it, what do we need to do? We repeat it. The more often we do something, the stronger that habit becomes. So, if I have a mental habit, emotional habit, or verbal, physical, maybe I eat something that's harmful to me, or a habit to use, terms um, uh, as I speak, or a habit of complaining or criticizing, whatever it is, every time that it comes up, because you know it it just comes. You don't think too much about it, but when it arises, if we materialize it, we take that, we give energy to it, it becomes stronger. And there are three ways to nourish a habit. Physically, so we take decisions, we act taken by that habit. We verbally, we verbalize, we we talk with that state of mind, with that habit, and then mentally we can get into a kind of mental dialogue with this habit mind. So the first step is somehow to ignore it, generate indifference. Has it ever happened that you've been walking along the road and you've seen someone, maybe someone is asking for money, asking for food, someone in trouble? There are three possible attitudes that one could generate. Attitude of giving energy in two different ways. Or you go towards the person in need and you look at the person in his or her eyes. You try to give a hand, you give attention to that person, physically, verbally, or mentally. Even just even just seeing that person and thinking something is a way to give attention to that person, or to speak to that person, touch that person, with attraction or with aversion. One could even see someone in need and react with violence, with aggression. This is possible too. And another way is that one acts with love, generosity, affection, tries to see the other and help. And the third possibility, so we have aversion, attraction, and the third is indifference. What is indifference? I know that there's a person there, but don't generate neither attraction nor aversion, as if the person wasn't there at all. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I'm guessing yes. We're in front of a situation, in front of someone, and we don't want to come into contact with it, for whatever reason. Sometimes because we don't want to suffer, and coming into contact means coming into contact with our own inability to do something, or impotence, or for whatever other reason. So for some reason we generate indifference, as if the person didn't exist. We don't generate attraction or aversion, but when we do this, we know that the other person's there, don't we? Yes. But what happens? We're not giving attention to him or her. We're not putting our energy towards that person. This is an experience that I think that more or less we've all had. Maybe I don't mean that it's what you do every time you see someone in need, but I imagine that it has happened. I give this example not to talk about indifference, which is actually a form of violence. Even the term to describe non-violence, himsa, is, is the non-indifference in front of suffering, the ahimsa. That says a lot already. Anyway, this wasn't the point. But the point is seeing indifference, recognizing the attitude of this neutrality, this indifference. I see that it's there, but I don't generate neither in attraction nor aversion. I just keep walking. When we have an habit, a so-called mental defilement, which could be physical, verbal, or mental, that we recognize is harmful to us, one method is to generate this kind of indifference. So I see that that habit is there. I don't try to hide it. I don't pretend that it's not there. I don't try to block it. I know it's there, but I'm not going to nourish it. I'm not putting energy into it. When we oppose something, we're giving energy. For example, I think it's happened to all of us, where you start talking to someone and you can have 3 different reactions from the person. A person who says, oh, maybe you're having an argument, and maybe the person says, no, let's not fight, I don't want to argue. Someone who's kind, and there's an exchange of energy. Or we can find someone who has an attitude of aversion towards us, and so I act with aggression, and then you act with aggression as well. There too, there's an exchange of energy. And then we can find indifference. When you find indifference, it's as if it just ended there. I throw something and it doesn't come back to me. I mean, I'm throwing the ball, but it doesn't bounce back to me. And among these 3, which is the one that bothers us the most somehow? Indifference. I remember also, I like to dedicate also some energy to this lady. She's a Tibetan lady, Aminya. She got to Brazil in the 1940s, 1950s, something like this. Her story is absolutely wild. She was from a Tibetan family from Lhasa. They were actually Muslim Tibetan. So Aminya is her name, and it was the Tibetan form of Amen. So Aminya, at a certain point, her family that was quite noble, they received a guest from China. I don't know from where, who was quite a delinquent somehow, and had really poor behavior also sexually, and this was very bothersome to the family. I mean, at the time, I don't know, this was in the 20s and the 30s. This, when someone came from far away, the one would stay for months and months, and so was the person was in embarrassing the family in society. So to calm him down, they gave him a bride, and he was actually quite violent. He was almost a criminal, and he just kept, he was cheating people, and he was always running away, and he went, actually he escaped from Tibet and into India, and somehow he got to Brazil. It's kind of a tragic story, all of this, and in the it is at the end, she she killed him when he was about to kill his own to kill his daughter. It's a very tragic story, but this reminds me that she would, I mean, then she went to the police to tell the whole story, you know, um, and then they pretended that she hadn't done anything because they knew the whole story. Anyway, beyond all of this, forgive me that I'm getting into all these details. This really strange story of this Tibetan lady in Brazil. So she would tell this story. She said that when she was quite young, before marrying, this man would would take her around from between Hong Kong and India, and often she was beaten. And she said that the the way her way of hurting him was to be indifferent in front of his violence. So she said that once, as he like, turned her arm backwards, it hurt a lot, and she didn't do anything. She didn't show any kind of pain or sufferance. And she said that this made she just stayed quiet, and this made him so angry. He actually broke her arm in that time, but indifference towards him was the worst thing she could do to him. So I just remembered this now, that when one throws a ball and that ball doesn't come back, it's almost more bothersome. Now, indifference is an attitude that can be applied to different things. What we're talking about here is it's not blocking and pretending that it's not there. It's about not giving energy back. There's a habit. I see that habit exists, but I don't give energy to it. Something that's really important, that in our various, how can I say, our various behaviors, they're not, they're not by nature good or bad. It depends on towards what. And when we see that there's a bad habit, by bad habit, I mean also fear and anxiety, anger, indifference. Just give indifference. I mean, I don't nourish it. I don't try to block it. No energy, mentally, physically, verbally. We've talked about this a lot of many times. And remember so Nyenisheja, the the sickness is to be recognized, and the causes are to be abandoned. Our sickness is our malaise, our symptoms, and the causes are that which generates the suffering. So I start by not nourishing that habit. And a fundamental point to not nourish it anymore is stop justifying. We shouldn't blame ourselves, or we shouldn't justify ourselves either. We say, I know I shouldn't have done that, but did you see what happened? Or I'm just like this, or it's the way I am. No, we shouldn't justify, because we are not. How can I say? We're not under accusation of something, or we don't need. We're not on trial. We don't need to explain. I know I shouldn't have, but this was like this. No one is judging our person. We shouldn't judge ourselves. We can judge our actions. Okay, this is harmful to me. I should let it go. Then, the state of health is to obtain, is to reach, and this is one of the most important points. Absolutely, is directing ourselves towards the state of health, directing ourselves towards what is healthy, what's virtuous, what's positive. and have a, an idealized view, a dream. I have a desire of something that maybe seems impossible. A kind of, I can't think of the name now. What kind of utopia? Have a utopia, like a perfectly healthy body. Sorry, sorry if I say so, but it's a utopic idea. The definition of body in Tibetan in Buddhist philosophy is Sakshin Nirling Gibumpo. Sakshin Nirling Gibumpo. Bumpo means accumulation, where it's like a heap, heap of the results of impurities. So it's where the results of our non-virtuous actions and thoughts accumulate. Or if we show, if we show jealousy, anger, fear, does this show up in our body or not? I mean, the actions we do in our lifetime, even on a very superficial level, without going into more more deeper aspects of karma. But the way I eat, the way I sleep, all the choices I make, this shows up on our body, it accumulates in our body. It's where the results of our actions manifest. So, so our choices, our emotions, everything we do, these results show up in our body. So good thing that so, um, I mean, it's good. Of course we get sick, and then also it accumulates in our karma. So having perfectly healthy body is a utopia. According to Tibetan medicine, the only way to have a perfectly healthy body is to be in a um, perfectly balanced state emotionally. So perfect balance, satisfaction, peace. This is the only way to be in perfect harmony. Also, uh, even if we eat well and we interact well and we live in a healthy place without pollution, etc., but inside, if we're not balanced, naturally, this is going to take our body to be unbalanced, and a sickness will arise. Even if in this lifetime having a perfectly healthy body is a utopia, this doesn't take away this my wanting to have that and my directing myself towards that. So here's the beautiful phrase about the function of utopia. Is the same. Is this the utopia like the horizon? It's has the same function as the horizon. The the more you walk towards the horizon, the farther away it is. So the function of the horizon is to get you to keep walking towards it. So it transcends the place where you are. And if I don't have that, I just stay where I am. Instead, when I desire something that goes beyond, I'm going to walk towards it. Maybe I won't get to perfect state of health, but I but I can probably then get older in with a body that is more or less healthy. I remember my my grandfather, who's 98 years old. He's fine. I remember about 15 years ago, he he had a cell phone with games on it. about 10 years ago, something like this. And he was there playing these games, and he said to me, he said, I don't really enjoy this, but when one gets older, at the time he was more than 80, he said, the he used all the technical terms, just the part of the brain that has this short-term memory deteriorates, as one gets older. So to keep that from happening is to just keep learning new things. One should never stop learning new things. So that's why I'm always doing these games or learning new things. I'm just trying to keep my brain healthy. This is an attitude. I mean, it worked. But the point is, I want to go in a direction. I have an objective, so I'm going to walk in that direction. And here the desiring something, desiring a utopia becomes important. I'm going to apply this process, this path to get to this ideal place. And with ourselves, we should have an idealized image of ourselves. What would I be like if I were perfectly healthy, emotionally, physically, mentally? I mean, what kind of emotional, mental, physical state do I want to obtain? This is really important for us. Because if I don't have an objective, I stay within my comfort zone of where I am, and we just relax. And even in sickness, even in conflict, even in malaise, we're able to just be comfortable. And when we make ourselves comfortable in this state of sickness, could be a state of conflict or a malaise or a bad relationship or sickness, the solution seems more difficult than the change seems more difficult than the situation itself, where I've gotten so used to. So changing the way I eat, exercising, taking medicine, changing, my emotional reactions, too difficult. So it's almost as if that were more suffering than the problem itself, because the direction is missing, the utopia is missing, that dream is missing, and we should not allow that to happen. So from from the point of view of like relationships with other people, maybe with another person, maybe someone in our family, our husband, our wife, our partner, our father, mother, a friend, whoever it is, if at a certain point there's some kind of conflict that it can happen, that some conflict arises, and in front of this conflict we can just sit back and be comfortable in it and say, well, this is the way it is, and you stay in that conflict, or say, no, I want to be happy with you. I want to have a harmonious relationship with you. And so I'm going to direct myself towards that. That means that I need to put energy. I need to learn to see your needs and stop nourishing the conflict. I need to stop having an idealized image of what you should be or what you should do. I should learn to accept you and put energy into this harmonious relationship, which does take a lot of energy, of course, but it takes us towards harmony. If there's conflict and I find a kind of comfort zone within that situation. So this is the way it is, and I'm just going to stay there. And I victimize myself. Putting energy seems just too tiresome. We should never lose this objective, never lose our dream, our desire, our wishes towards ourselves and also towards others. But for others, I mean every situation, our way of working, our physical health, our relationship with every person. What kind of relationship do I want to have? How do I want to resolve situations? What kind of place do I want to live as a society? And this happens in our times. I mean, we see problems, we recognize the problems, we complain about them, and then we say, oh, but I'm too small or insignificant to do anything, so it's better if I just stay home and watch TV. I don't know if it's ever happened to you or if you've ever seen someone. If you see some trash on you see trash on the ground and just complain about others who have littered and say, oh, that's just disgusting that people just throw trash on the ground. We say, I'm not the one who threw it away. I didn't litter like this, so I'm not the one that should pick it up. So and regardless of who threw it, if I threw it away like that, um, we want a clean environment. So it's not good for the environment for the litter to be on the ground. So we should pick it up, independently of who threw it away. So I was in the mountains, very far away. So and going towards the car, like in the middle of in the mountains, there was an actual diaper that had been left, all folded up, and the tendency is not to go and pick it up. I saw this. Is to judge the one who just threw it away. Instead, we went and we took it and we threw it away. Um, but that's not necessarily the first reaction that we have. What I mean to say is that we need to go beyond the judgment and go towards the objective that we want of our environment, of society, and not stay with the attitude um, of oh, it would be wonderful, but I'm so insignificant. What I can do is so little, so in the end, I do nothing. To say, I've seen people say, "Oh, it would be wonderful if no one stole, but since they do, I'm going to steal too." I've seen this happen. I've seen it doesn't work like this. Everyone takes advantage of the situation. I'm going to take advantage of it too. So keep the objective of everything is fundamental, and take time to reflect and develop this objective, dream, allow ourselves to dream. What would it be like if this was a healthy environment, healthy society? Draw it, paint it, dream it, and in front of this, this desire comes out, and comes up, and we direct ourselves towards that. And here comes the main point of today. Once I stop nourishing what is harmful to me, and I direct myself towards the state of health or that desire, I have that desire. I need to direct my forces, direct my energy. because we have a limited amount of energy, a certain quantity of energy. When we wake up, we have more energy, and then we get tired, and then we go back, we sleep, and we need to renovate our our strength for the following day. And we use up our energy with in so many things. We use up our energy physically. We use up our energy by speaking. And we use up our energy mostly by thinking. So, what, here's the question. But where do I use up my energy? How am how do I use the energy that I have? As if, let's imagine at the beginning of the day, we have 100. At the end of the day, we have 10. It's better not to go to sleep with 0. What happens? Where am I? How do I use up this energy that I have? And what's interesting is that there's some ways of using energy that actually um, take more energy, or can actually can bring energy. So I use up energy, but then it brings energy, comes back to me. We spoke last Monday. We talked about the perfection of method, or skillful means, and the next one, and the one I was a little bit late this morning because I was looking for the definition of this, the next perfection. There's there was the definition of the one from last week, which was skillful means or method, top. But of today, I'll leave you with my own interpretation. I have 2 or 3 books still to look in, but I wasn't able to look at them before today. It's not that I didn't have time. I didn't use the time to do that. So it's the perfection of strength. Top means strength, power. So it's the perfection of strength. It's about directing our energy, how we use the energy we have, how we use our strength, how I use my energy. And this is a very important point. The ideal thing is to learn how to use our energy for things that produce energy. Not necessarily 100 for 100, So some things actually we put in 100 and 200 come back to us as a good investment. Has it ever happened to you where you've put energy into something and then you end up stronger, you have more energy than when you began? There are certain things that bring this energy, but we should at least try to start with this idea. I wake up in the morning, I have a certain quantity of energy. Where am I going to direct this energy? Because this energy that I have is what we call life. It's our vital energy. It's where our life happens. How do I want to use it up? Every day, we are using up our life. It's said that when we're born, each one of us has a certain amount of vital energy available. According to Chinese energy, it's the kidney energy. It's or ancestral energy that when when it's used up, it's used up. You're born with a certain amount, and you cannot be renewed. And so there's certain energies you have to be very careful on how you use them up. And according to um, um, in the Tibetan Buddhist text, there's something called tse, and the term it's the same term used for life. Tse is it's as if it's like a vital energy, and every day we use it up. It's said that it's it's actually used up with every breath, as if our vital energy were counted in breaths. Once I met a Russian man in India, and we went to the this Trivedi house. It seemed like a movie, and this man had this idea that given that the vital energy is used up in breaths, his technique for living longer was to breathe less. So he had trained in pranayama techniques. So he would have very, very long breaths. And so he trained in breathing in very slowly, and exhaling slowly. And it said normally that one has 21,600 breaths a day. And if from 21,000 they become 5,000, then according to this theory, then or this reasoning, this life would be longer. But independently of this, we can study it or look at it many ways. We have a certain amount of life energy and a certain amount of time, um, uh, and every day we're using it up. Even if we were to live for 200, 100 years, 100 years, more realistic, every day we're using up that life, right? So every day when we wake up, we have a certain quantity of energy. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is where we want to invest that energy, how we want to use it. Because the way we use our energy is not is not a consequence of what happens to us. It's our choice. It depends on us. What what happens around us doesn't depend exclusively on us. Depends on many factors. But but the Stoics had this. The Greek Stoics had this concept that the phenomenon are divided up into what depends on us and what doesn't depend on us, and what happens around us doesn't depend on us. And I would say yes and no, because a large part doesn't, but in our choices interact and transform what happens around us, even if we don't have total control. But we have control over how we react, how we how we live situations, where we put our energy. And if we observe in our life, in our life experiences, what tires us more? Walking a lot, running, jumping, doing physical exercises, or talking a lot, or or compulsive thinking. Um, in your opinion, what do you think of these three? Uh, After a long period of these things, where which one makes you more tired, more exhausted? And I think it's the thinking. after after like a really heavy meal, like a feijoada, you know, it, it's then becomes difficult to actually even to think, because all the blood in the body is going towards the digestion, and there's just not enough um, blood for the brain. Our our brain is the organ that takes up the most energy in our body. According to the Tibetans, I remember when there are like when they're at the monastery, the monks that need to sit for exams and they need to study, they're very, very difficult, and they have like they're like 5 years of exams, where each exam that's like a month. If this study is 16 hours a day, it's crazy how much they have to study. And in that period where they have to study so much, most of the monks eat, what is given the food from the monastery, and then some money is and money is raised for to have better food for for the for the monks who are studying for these exams. It's to say this, that because the thinking just uses up a lot of energy, and every thought, every emotion is using up a part of our life. And it doesn't just use it up, but it also nourishes that habit. So let's start from the principle. I repeat one more time. We wake up and we have a certain amount of energy. And and it would be good to learn to have this awareness of directing this amount of energy and using it with awareness. Yes, yeah, there's this thing to do, but my energy is too precious. I want to direct it in this other thing. And little by little, I leave this to your own experience. And you see the things you know, that you see what brings energy back to you, and what are the things that just use up your energy. Where you put in 100 and it just takes out 150, or maybe you put in 100 and then or so you put in 100 and 150 come back to you, or um, you put in 100 and y- you know 20 comes back. I have this feeling that some things I do where I put in energy, and then I end up with even more energy has come back to me. Things that are done with love, with a real affection, or with joy. These things. This generates this kind of energy. So one of our qualities, one of our characteristics that we have is to choose where we want to invest our energy. And we have this awareness where with awareness we want to invest our energy. And if we see that it's not going to bring fruit, or it's going to use up my energy uselessly, then we don't put energy in that direction. We are always using up this vital energy with every thought, action, and word. And so as much as possible, we need to direct our vital energy into what is virtuous and what is good for us, towards this utopia. And with this, gradually, we'll see that really we're able to cultivate more and more and pacify the mind that harms us. And so this characteristic to perfect is our energetic management. Um, Rinpoche had infinite energy, but mostly because, from my point of view, because Rinpoche had this ability to direct his energy into what increased it. And so he was maintaining always this high level of energy and never allowed, he never allowed himself to be drained. He let his energy drain. I mean, just think of how much more energy we would have if we just stopped, these internal cycles of problems. I mean, if we didn't have this constant flow of thought of, if this person was like this or that was like that, or this person's like this, he should be like that, or this anger, this fear. If we were able to pacify all this, how much more energy would we have? Instead, you know, if if and if we are able to direct that, direct our energy into that which actually generates more energy, it would be marvelous. So I invite you to to choose with awareness where you want to direct your energy, how you want to use up your vital energy, your vital energy force. So it's time for our dedications.
Losan tempe dreme sasumge drove munsela takto ne gyurchi kewa kunto yanda lama dang dralme cheke pela longche ching sada lamge yunte rabzone dorje change kopa nyurtobasho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin Nintsen takto delekpe kuncho sumke chinge lop kuncho sumke ngodrubo tsol kuncho sumke trashisho.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Tashidele. Have a nice day.